Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, it's a great honor and pleasure to present to you Dr. Barbara Harold-Bond.
I left Oxford in 1996, and in 1997 to 2000 I went to Uganda, where I conducted research. And at the same time we started the Refugee Law Project. That was the first legal aid provision, as far as I know, anywhere in what we call the Global South.
Congratulations to the Refugee Law Project on 20 years. Incredible. From Pam Raynell, who started off 20 years ago. So I'm delighted. Congratulations and well done to each and every person who has been involved on this journey.
Happy 20th to RLP. May you live to be 40, may you live to be 100.
I think I was extremely blessed to have met Barbara at the moment that I did. She infected me with her passion, and I went to visit her many times at Misa in Makerere, and she somehow quietly and not so quietly handed things over to me. It was quite daunting to step into her shoes. She was fearless, she had no fear, and so keeping up that level of courage, boldness, surety, yeah, they were big shoes to fill.
Now, although it began small, we found that the response was very, very high. Refugees began to learn about RLP. They began to bring their problems to RLP. So we began to focus on different areas, from legal counseling to education to eventually psychosocial work that addressed the issue of especially post-traumatic stress disorder. And secondly, at that time, Makerere couldn't quite understand the concept of an organization that was not doing entirely academic work, that was doing outreach, that was doing community service. And so we had a bit of a problem convincing the authorities that, look, this is the way for the university to go, to get out of the ivory tower and begin doing work with the people outside of the university. The area was not given much concern even by the government. Refugees were largely left to their own devices once they came. There was a particular lack of attention to urban refugees. Students were also not very interested in this area. They didn't think that it had many career prospects, and so we didn't get much enthusiasm initially.
I mean, in Uganda at that time, it was also a little bit complicated because the legislation we had on the statute books was the 1960 Control of Aliens and Refugees Act, which was archaic, and which also was in complete contradiction and contravention of our constitution, our 1995 constitution, and also all the international instruments that Uganda was signatory to. So there was a great need for people to really understand what were they entitled to understand whether or not they could move, whether or not they could work, whether or not they could get some kind of identification, which is very important for refugees.
When I joined in 2006, the organization was still structured in terms of departments around skill sets, basically. Around lawyers, around counselors, around researchers. But by 2011, it was clear that our understanding of what kind of services we should be providing to refugees, what issues we should be looking at thematically had become a lot clearer. And that's where we switched from departments to the 5 themes that we have today. We had about 20 staff, all in one office, one vehicle, and about $400,000 for the year.
As we speak, we are a total of 210 employees. I've seen the organization grow from 3 offices to 13 offices, and we've expanded a lot, and I attribute that to the commitment, dedication, the open door policy that we have at the organization, where forced migrants are free to walk in and access services. We do not have like a system that locks people outside, and we do not compromise discrimination. Once you involved in discrimination, you're not part of the organization. You can't be part of us.
One of the benefits that's come for us as Refugee Law Project out of doing training with stakeholders such as the police, such prisons, such as immigration, such as magistrates, such as peacekeepers of the UPDF going to Somalia, is a completely different relationship with all of those institutions. And that relationship is part of what enables us to then have constructive dialogues on topics that are not necessarily very comfortable.
The training that we are getting on the refugee rights and the protection is going to capacitize our soldiers to know exactly how to deal with the problems that they face when they meet these people.
We have benefited because trainers now talk about some of the things with a lot of confidence. Issues of gender and sexuality, which is also a key area, has really enriched the perspective from which the trainers now understand this.
Equipping our people with the knowledge on refugee law, it helps us, first of all, appreciate the challenges the refugee inmates find themselves in.
Philemon Isevare is a videographer in Kampala. He is a Congolese refugee now making a living out of his skills. He enrolled into the videography and filmmaking class here at the Refugee Law Project.
We make money when we are called by someone who has a work. And it can be a marriage, it can be an event, it can be a birthday. And apart from that, we are also telling stories of people.
Because I came to learn English, I communicate with people, I can work without problem. I can go even to hospital, I can communicate with doctors without again to look for an interpreter. Alone I can communicate in English, even if it's still little, but they can hear me.
Je réponds au nom de Aimé Moninga. J'étais victime et survivant de violences sexuelles pendant les conflits armés en République démocratique du Congo. Mais maintenant, je me tiens devant vous comme un activiste afin de défendre les sans-voix.
The relationship with the School of Law, it's a parent-child relationship. We are a child of the School of Law, and just like every child, you never separate from your parent.
One thing that the school has benefited quite a lot from the Refugee Law Project is the profile. The Refugee Law Project has established itself, I could say, as a center of excellence in refugee studies, refugee and migration studies. It has been a pillar in dealing with one of the problems that the Great Lakes region faces, which is the problem of forced migration. It has played a very big role in promoting learning at the School of Law through contributing to areas of research in the area of refugees and migration studies and related areas. It has also trained our students, including student interns. The school is now in position to follow closely what is happening at the Refugee Law Project. So we now feel that actually the Refugee Law Project is part of the school, and that the school is part of the Refugee Law Project.
Over the last 20 years, we've come to realize that there's not enough space with which we can talk about issues we want to talk about. And that's why in the year 2010, we established the first Institute for African Transitional Justice to talk about what it means to do transitional justice in Africa, and especially in the context of our work. In 2013, we established the first ever South-South Institute on Sexual Violence Against Men and Boys, coming from a background that narratives and conversation on sexual violence is keeping outside men and boys who have also gone through enormous experiences of sexual violence. In the year 2016, we established the Psychomedical and Legal Clinic, which brings together refugees with different experiences in a one-stop center instead of working with them in silos. In the year 2017, we established the first regional conference on forced migration. And coming from a background that Uganda is one of the largest refugee hosting countries, not only in Africa, but in the world. And yet you find from our intervention, not enough conversation happens among different actors. And as part of our RLPR 20, we are launching the first Wakimbizi Film Festival and trying to explore what it means to be a refugee and what does it mean to be a host working with refugees. And we are bringing together refugees and host voices in documentaries.
I think where we're at now, at 20, we've come to a place where we have memoranda of understanding with key stakeholders, with Office of the Prime Minister, with district local governments, with the UPDF. Does that mean we never say anything they don't like? No, it doesn't. We do bring issues that may be difficult, may be uncomfortable, but we're in a relationship where we can actually carefully explore what do those issues mean. We've been putting a lot of attention on the question of disclosure and how do we get people to a place where they feel able to disclose what actually happened. I think one of our achievements in the last few years has been to kind of codify that into a process. So we now have this process that we call SRSD.
The S, which stands for screen, is where our staff go into neutral settings in refugee settlements and in the host communities to ask a number of questions supported by a computerized program that we have designed it internally as Refugee Law Project. And through those questions is where we interact to learn from refugees and hosts their experiences of war, what happened during and before flight, and what is happening in their life. The R, which stands for refer, from the interaction, from the screening, that is where now we ascertain whether the person we've interacted with has a war-related experience with which we can be able to intervene. And it is from that point that we make referrals to our doctors and to counselors who then engage with the clients. And it is from that conversation that the doctors can then diagnose and prescribe the necessary treatment process. The second S, which is support, is where we now walk through the journey of rehabilitation together with our clients. The D, which is to document, That is now where we find it is an opportune moment for us to have an engaging conversation with our clients, following through from the hints of the screening up to a time where they feel able and ready to have a conversation in depth in what happens to them specifically.
There is also how do we publish? So we have moved a long way from only having written publications, much though those continue to be important, to also doing a lot of work on video. If you look at our website, I think we have around 80 to 90 different pieces of video work that we've done in the last several years. We're very active on key social media platforms. I think to me that's partly it's about transparency.
As we celebrate the 20 years, I want to really thank the former employees who really gave RLP the foundation, and then I thank the current employees who are pushing forward the agenda.
We're also now moving towards establishing a sixth thematic area, which is around climate change and forced migration. We're confronted with the reality that by 2050 there will be at least 200 million forced displaced people as a result of climate issues.